So we're going to be doing part 2 of Archaeology Cymru's Ghost Experience Wales lectures on a Saturday. And it's part 2 of our Monknash and Marcross. Now you will find tonight has got a hell of a lot of Monknash content. And you know what? I was looking through the old records, and I just found the original bit of paper, right? Because I used to write things down back then. My original little paper that outlined what we were going to do on that walk that very evening, our first ghost walk in 2015. Things like camera ready. I've got to take a photograph of everybody. We had to give out leaflets, and I had to introduce people. It was our first walk, and I had to tell everybody that they had to go into the Plough and Harrow and have the 3.5 volume Golden Best Ale that day. So it was a long time ago. It was over 5 years ago, and that's the little bit of paper that I got in front of me. And if you can remember from the last lecture, I mentioned that I mentioned the monk's bones, which if anyone needs to know about the monk's bones on Marcross, the world expert on the monk's bones at Marcross is me in front of me. It was a weird event when I found out about these monk's bones at Monknash. Did I say Marcross? God, start again. Yes, Monknash. So when I originally found out about these bones at Monknash along the coast, I went down there. I took some photographs. I was given some photographs from a woman in Barry, and it became a media sensation. And the media sensation was that my photographs and this lady from Barry's photographs were in every single newspaper in Britain. It was very strange. For one day, I was the most famous archaeologist in Britain. I was in the Sun, the Times, the Guardian, the Echo. I was on radio, TV. And the weirdest thing was, somebody commented that very day in 2014 that they had the absolute guts full of reading my reports in the local newspaper. So they went to London, and on the tube, somebody happened to be reading the Metro, and guess whose face should be staring out at them as they looked across? Mine. So great. So I was famous for one day. And the one thing about this walk that we had down to the Monknash, the Plough and Harrow, the Cistercian Grange, we went to see the monk's bones. And unfortunately, in 2015, the monk's bones had been deliberately smashed out of the face. And they were only showing a couple of days earlier. We checked out the walk and they were there. Anyway, we'll come on to that. So anyway, what I'd like to do today is I'd like to try, if time permits, to look at the wonderful Grange at Monknash and look at the other Grange at Marcross. So the monk's bones are down here, and that's Nash Point. So it's quite easy to get the two mixed up, actually. Sort of very similar if you squint your eyes, but very different geology, very different archaeology, as we were finding out on these walks. And the one thing about our first walk at Monknash was that the weather could be whatever the weather wanted to be. So when we did the Monknash walk that very first time in 2015, it was raining at the beginning, and at the end it wasn't raining. It was cold, it was warm, it was windy, it was all the conditions, and archaeology, history, myths, legends, and ghosts. So it had it all. And even a free drink in the Plough and Harrow afterwards from the manager at the Plough and Harrow at the time, who was very much behind us with our walks at that stage. So, but one thing that became clear was that I couldn't tell everybody all the archaeological stories simply because there was just too much of it. But one of the key things that we didn't look at last time when we did part 1, Monknash and Nash Point. So there you are, it on the map. We didn't actually look too much at what was in that field here and what this thing was here. And And I would always stand here and I'd point something out in the field. So what am I blithering on about? This is the thing that we need to address. So one of the greatest one of the greatest things about Monknash is that you can have a walk there and not see anybody, and you can appreciate the landscape. It might be a very busy pub, and the pub is, if I'm going to look there, there's the pub, that's the Tithe Barn, that's the Dovecote, and as long as you park your car, you're fine. And there's lots of other buildings around there as well. So what I would say to people, we would usually start outside the Plough and Harrow, but as the years went by, we actually changed where we would start to this bit here, which is the green. And the last time we actually did a walk at Monknash, we actually started at the green. And in the green, at the green, should say, there's a nice copse of trees. And the interesting thing is about the nice copse of trees. The last time that we did Monknash and Marcross, one of the ladies that was actually involved in that lecture we must have done 2 months ago, she said her dad planted those trees. Interesting. What was there before? Well, there's been something there for a very, very long time. And what that is if you look at the other mapping stuff, you can't see it in the field, but there are two places of interest, right? Obviously, forget about that for a minute. The two places of interest are the clump of trees and what's in this field. Very interesting. And I think there's one in this part of the field as well. What's in this field? 50 years ago, there were Bronze Age mounds in this field, a number of Bronze Age mounds. And it's very likely that from the descriptions that I used to read, the mounds themselves were about half a meter above ground level. So we're having a little joke about golf tees and all the rest of it. But if you think about the mound that's associated with a golf tee, they're usually about half a meter in height. And these were the height of these barrows, the Bronze Age barrows in the field 50 years ago. But because of intensive farming, those barrows have been completely lost and erased. But if you squint your eye after a couple of drinks, you look into that field, you might be able to see a single mound, but you've got to go there at the right time when maybe the crop has been sown and it's about 2 or 3 inches the crop across the field, and you can see a little mound. But there are a number of mounds that you can't see anymore. Another point about this is that in the 1939, my good old granddad Noah was involved in landscaping the area at Landau and St. Athan. And landscaping meant the removal of Bronze Age burial mounds. If I can exaggerate, and may I be excused for exaggerating, maybe in the Vale of Glamorgan before the war, there were about 1,000 Bronze Age burial mounds. That may be completely over exaggerated, but when you think about it, if they think there's a number here and there's a number at another location, and there was 100 odd at Landau and maybe 100 odd at St. Athan, then you've got loads of other locations, right? There may have been up to 1,000 Bronze Age burial mounds in the Vale of Glamorgan, but they were all removed. And then I say, right, I say to everybody, I say, if you think about the removal of these mounds and the loss of the archaeology, something hasn't been lost, and it's here, directly under your feet. So there's the Plough and Harrow, the church is just a bit further on down the road, and further on over there you've got the rest of the Grange and so on, which we'll go on to in a moment. I would always say, this is what I would say. So Amy's standing alongside me after giving a little bit of a brief, and I would then say, right, where you're standing, where the arrow is pointing, under those trees are actually the burials of probably up to 100 odd people, and they were all buried there at the when there was a plague outbreak. Obviously, was it the Black Death of 1350 or 1351 or 1349, whatever date it was? What would happen is that people would initially be buried at the church, and then then it would be buried in rows and they'd be buried in a pit. So that's where the plague pit is. And it's the only area in the village that you think, why is nothing on this? And the reason why there's nothing on it is because there's burials there. So I'm very aware that there's lots I need to get through, so I'd probably spend too much time prevaricating. I'd just like to mention this is known as Green Lane. So here we go. Let's just point out where Green Lane is. Oh, there we go. So hang on, let me get my right. This here is known as a Green Lane, or Hier Las, or Las Heel, which means Green Lane. And this is a rather interesting lane, because this creates the boundary of this here. Now, I read these notes over and over again, and my notes tell me that this area with a wall around it and a ditch and a bank, which you can not really make out, this whole area itself is 20 acres in area. I don't really believe that. It doesn't. It never felt like 20 acres, and I think it's a little bit less on that. But anyway, what we would always do is we would say, right, let's go here. Then we went to the clump, and then we'd wander down the lane, and then we would jump over the stile, and then we'd go into the field. And I remember doing one walk this night. We were really impressed. We had like 30 plus people. This was so like 2016 or something, and we thought it was most we'd ever had. But last year the most we had ever had was about 50 plus people on a walk, which Amy came along on. But anyway, back then 30 people was a hell of a lot of people for us. The weird thing was, by the time we got into the field, we had lost 10 people, because I think about 6 or 7 of them had said, oh, we forgot to have something to eat. So they decided to have a meal in the Plough and Harrow. And then 3 other people said, oh, we don't want to go over the stile or something. And anyway, at that point, we had about 20 people. It was quite strange. And I think it was probably a lot to do with this feeling in this field. There's a weird feeling in this field, a very, very strange feeling in this field. And it sort of gave the sense of something really interesting and something really, really old. So what I'm going to do is a little bit more detail than we did last time. And if I can sort of draw in a few things, this line along here, and probably all the way up to here, is probably the area of a large fish ponds. And then what you've got this building here that is actually a dovecote. This is a rather interesting building, not sure what that was. But what we would always feel, there was something weird about that building. Always something weird about that building. And what we would always sense is that there would be a really cold feeling in that building. Very, very cold feeling. And then as we start to get to know the landscape, there's another building here, which unfortunately I don't have any images of that building there, or any of this here, which is a bit of a shame. But that building there, there's like an archway of a door, and that's the chapel for the Grange. Now, what exactly is a Grange? Now, I used to say to people it was known as the Ordo Cisterciensis, which meant the Cistercian Order Grange of Monknash. Now, it was a lot more complicated than people make out. When you think about, has there been extensive archaeological excavations? There has been work here, but not sort of in modern times, which is a bit of a shame. And what is a Cistercian monk? A Cistercian monk is a monk that wears a white color cocula. A white color cocula is that sort of garment type thing that they've got over their robe, and they've obviously got the habit and all the rest of it. So these were the Cistercian monks and the nuns, not forget the nuns. These were referred to by one chronicler back in the medieval period as the draft oxen of God, because they were known as lay brothers, and they were not sort of ordained. They were brothers, but they were lay brothers, if you know what I mean. They weren't priests and they weren't sort of the hierarchy of the church, but they were obviously lay brothers. They would wear the kukula, and they would have about up to 12. Well, we worked out one time, it got really complicated actually. When we got into it, we sort of worked out that there was about up to 12 services a day, and they would like get 2 hours of sleep between 10 and 12, and you'd have another one service, and it'd be from 12 until whatever. These people were up all the time praying, right? But draft oxen of God, and you know, these were the lowest of the low. These were the uneducated and illiterate lay brothers that were the ones that were the draft oxen of God. I know I've mentioned that twice. So this whole thing itself, we get into it, and you know, after some time of doing the walks within the landscape, all the focus ended up on this building and this building. And what we used to do, it used to be really complicated actually. We used to go over the style. I used to talk about the fish ponds, and then we would like go over a style, and then we would go here, and then we would go there, and then we would go there, and we'd go in this field, and then we'd go down here, and then we'd go down here. So in other words, by the time we'd done all this, it was an hour, and the walk would usually take 3 hours all the way to the coast and back. So we'd stop that. So I didn't actually, you know, most of the stuff I got in front of me now, I stopped doing. But this was a really rich estate. You know, it was really wealthy, and that tithe barn itself took probably up to there was lots of estimates. So I'd gather people inside the dovecote, and you know, people would have various feelings inside the dovecote where I know I mentioned this last time that there would be women in there, and they would feel they couldn't leave because they were being kept inside the dovecote. Anyway, with all that said, the ghost stories and the ghost stuff took over the archaeology and history that I wanted to do. But that's what my client base wanted, was more ghosts than archaeology and history. But I got the luxury tonight where I can put everything in. So this was associated with Neath Abbey, the Abbey of Neath, which was Cistercian. This was an outlying farm. And what would happen is the goods would be taken out from this locality, some port nearby. That's one point. One thing I never mentioned, and that's a really, I've not realised that. For the goods to be taken out, they wouldn't have been taken across land; they'd be taken out by boat. So there you go. So this was in the heart of 140 to 200 acres of land, which was some of the best agricultural land in the Vale of Glamorgan. Just chuck in a few facts here. The columbarium itself would have had 666 roosting perches, which is the number of the beast, and it was at 6.3 meters in diameter, and that's quite a chunky building actually, and up to eight maybe under 10 meters tall, with maybe something else on the roof. So moving on a little bit further again, as we sort of plod along. So the one wonderful thing about archaeology is that sometimes aerial photography, you can get a good thing like this with the snow on the ground, and you've got shadows and all the rest of it, and then you get other times that you can't really see much. And just a couple of points to make as well, to sort of fill the archaeology in here. So if you think this is this from here to here, and then you take this sort of line all the way to here, actually it's very difficult to make out because it goes there, and it's very difficult to work out what's going on. But we've got another line going across there, but you can actually see that it may have gone across here as well. So it's rather difficult to work out. But then you've got this stretch along here, which is 320 meters across. Now that's rather interesting. The frontage with the road here is exactly the same frontage with the road at Marcross. So it's a sort of the dimensions are not the same. And the thing what you can see is that if you're looking and you can see it, you can actually see a ditch. You know, 5 meters across ditch. So I had a ditch around the whole thing, except for the road. Now, what we do know about the Plough and Harrow, it probably dates back to the 1300s. And the building here is a tithe ban. And the tithe ban itself was the tallest structure that could be seen anywhere in the landscape. So if you were down by the coast, you could see the roof of the tithe ban. If you're sort of in Wick, you could probably see the roof in the tithe ban. A really impressive structure. And what I've decided to do tonight is actually chuck some examples of what this tithe ban would have looked like. That's not it, but that is actually our site at Neath. So all the goods would have been taken to Neath. And one point is that the reason why Neath is such a rich abbey is because of the wealth generated for Neath from the outlying farms such as Monknash and Marcross. And so much money was generated, and you start to wonder, back to what I've always said, and I'll maintain this. When we think about the wealth generated for the abbey, it could not have just come from cattle and sheep and grain. And obviously, I've said that, you know, the monks are naturally involved in the wrecking of ships along the coast, and lots of those goods would have then been transported. The irony of by sea to be taken into the coffers at Neath itself. So I've always said that it was quite a tremendous building, and this estate itself is a very rich estate as well. Looking down at that's that building I mentioned. Again, all these different views, and the one thing is you could maintain is that that's Broughton up there actually. So if you could actually find more or less a footpath leading all the way across, all the way down here. But I would never advise taking the footpath beyond this point, simply because it's quite treacherous and you need your wits about you, and it's not really worth it when you can actually follow on down the road. So, when Gillian was asking about, about Monknash, for example, UNE, the walk to UNE in 2 weeks' time, she said, was it appropriate for people to walk? And yeah, UNE is, but Gillian, I can't even walk this whole route. So, this is why we started doing the road. Just a little queer thing that is really not coming up on your screen, is really not a good copy, but this is a little bit of an archaeological plan showing the banks and ditches, and so the banks and ditches this side, and these other banks and ditches indicated as well, and obviously the dovecote, and sort of showing some of the buildings on here as well. So it's sort of useful, but it's not really that clear. So anyway, moving on. Now this itself, this is rather interesting, right? And why? Well, I sometimes focus on other areas of what I'm doing. I can't always find the images that I want, and tonight I failed. And what I mean I've failed on is that, oh God, I've gone a bit too far. Hang on a minute. I want to show you, I wanted to point out where the tithe ban was. Right. So I'll give you a bit of a description of the tithe ban, and I want to show you what the tithe ban looked like, and what's actually there today. So the tithe ban itself is from here, and stretched all the way across. And you can imagine that that's quite a big building, right? That is a really big building. The tithe ban back then, well, the remains are still there today. So if you ever go in there, sorry to dither about today. So this is that's the roof there that you can actually see. And you can, if you go into the field here, you can actually see bits of the wall. And what you can see is lots of the put logs and all the rafter posts as well. But if you go there the right time of day, if you look over here, you can actually see the porch. there was 2 porches, because this was nearly 70 meters in length, which is quite chunky, and 10.5 meters wide. So it was quite a wide building. It would have had it would probably had a basement, a ground, a first and a second floor. And what this building looked like is, whenever I've been there, I've not sort of had an image of what this building looked like. So let's have a little look at it. This is what it looked like. So this example is known as Middle Littleton Barn. This is a National Trust property. And it would have looked like this. This is how it looked. This is how, I know you live in Lantern Major, Gillian. This is what the tithe ban used to look like in Lantern Major, but not as grand as this one, and not as grand as Monknash, because the one at Monknash, like this one, had 2 porches like this. It had 2, and it had 2 porches on the front. I think, if I'm working this out, you would enter your cart in the one, and if you're taking anything out, you would leave with this one. And there was 1 entrance on the other side with the one at Monknash. 1 entrance into the precinct, and there were 2 entrances from, you know, the secular side. So the ecclesiastical side, there was 1 entrance. Secular side, there was 2. And this was what made it grand. And, you know, I got to the stage that I basically started to say to people, the monks at Monknash were sinister, evil bastards. And I would always say it. I would always say it that way, because there's only one way the Wick wreckers could actually get to the coast, and that was actually through the Monknash estate that was run by the monks, and they would have had to give permission. Can you imagine? Oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're just taking a load of stuff from the coast. Don't mind us. It was owned by the church, so the church would have had to have had their take. And they took what we see, they took a token number of bodies that would be prepared in the building that we now know as the Plough and Harrow, which would have been an ancillary building associated with practices with the church and so on. And that's where they would have prepared those people that had been wrecked along the coast deliberately. So, and in this building, just a reminder, folks, just a reminder. If you think about 10 sacks, I always love doing this one. If you think, for example, a normal sort of secular family, not associated with the church, would probably have maybe 10 sacks of barley from one harvest in early September. It's different back then. So the maths would be that 1 sack would go to the tithe, to the monastery. 1 sack would go to the church to keep the living of the church going, right? So that's fair enough. 1 would go to the lord of the manor. So there you go. 1 would go to the miller. And so you got four bags of grain have already gone. And I always used to say there was a sinister tax. The dovecote, I always used to say that they would release the doves at harvest time to pick up the grain that the poor people weren't quick enough to pick up. So that was another tax, a stealth tax. And that would be a tax by the king as well. There you go, another tax. Oh, God, I forgot the Reeve of the Village. You forgot the Reeve of the Village. You did an important role, okay? So you'd have to keep 1 sack back for planting the following year, 1 sack for eating, and guess what was left? So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sacks. And guess what, Del? Your ridge and furrow plots in the field were set too long. So you find another sack of grain. So that's all your grain goes. This is how people in the medieval period were so poor, because of the taxes. And this is why I don't like monks. I know some monks were good, nice people, yeah, but not many. So this is what the tithe ban would have looked like inside at Monknash, except it would be several floors, and this is what it would have looked like. It would have been seen for miles around. It's very difficult to get people to understand the importance of the tithe ban and its sort of sinister link with the landscape. And also, if you look there as well with those slots, you do see slots indicated with the ones still remaining at the roadside wall, actually at Monknash, even to today. And one weird thing as well is, even though this porch is gone, this porch still exists, because when you look up, you can actually see it from the road. You can actually see the circular window, and you can see the nice bit of door in silhouette. It's there. It's great. Love it. Shame I haven't got the image of that today, but life's life. So what I'd like to do now is one thing I completely was absent doing last time. And you know what, folks? I need to get a glass of drink. So I'm just going to, give me a second. Right, here we go. So, Dale, do you ever have milk delivered? Not milk, orange delivered by the milkman?
No, we just have milk, local milk. We can see the cows.
Yeah. The thing is, I tried to milk a cow with one teat the other day. Moving on. Anyway.
Yes.
You were really slow on the uptake there. So anyway, what we're talking about is likely that the land was given over to Neath by Richard de Granville in about 1330, and it remained a flourishing Grange with its excess wealth, and we know what we're talking about, up until about the 1533 and about 1540 or somewhere like that. So anyway, so it was very wealthy establishment. So here we go. I'd like to, I haven't actually read these out for a long time. So there we go. In the order. So here we go. I used to have cue cards, and I just didn't bother then. Anyway, the original ones. Di Woodham, 44 years old, the then owner in 2006, was unhappy about the apparitions that would warn people. And it would be said that the Gareth Davis, who was the manager, and the staff would be warned not to go ahead with the extension. So we're looking at the fireplace at the Plough and Harrow. So yeah, so they were going to extend the pub in 2006, and the ghosts were not happy, it said. So what they then did in 2006, you can actually find this on the internet, I think, still. They called in a spiritual medium, and they found out, the spiritual medium found out that there'd been an intense period of poltergeist activity, particularly in 2006, and it nearly shut the pub. But we actually started to find out, this is sort of fact. We actually started to find out that every single owner of the pub went doolally. Or not the owner of the pub, the manager of the pub. That's more like it. Every manager of the pub went doolally. And the last manager of the pub, whose name I shall not mention, Paula, had to leave the pub because she started to go a bit strange as well. And we know of an instance where somebody I think it was one of the managers, had a shotgun and he shot his wife, all associated with the Plough and Harrow. So it's not the place to manage, in other words. And the problem is, what would happen? We'd spend so little time at the Plough and Harrow that I wouldn't do this next bit. So anyway, back in 2006, the 2 weeks after we appointed Gareth Davis as the new landlord, 2006, were the worst ever. We came very close to closing the pub because everything was going wrong. Bottles and glasses were flying off the shelves and smashing, and the till and the credit card machine kept going down. Well, you can't have a pub without a credit card machine, can you? And actually, weirdly enough, I can remember that there was a few times the credit card machine was down when we went in the pub. Wasn't that right, Michelle? Yeah, because I can remember we went in there once or twice, and they said the credit card machine's down, so we had to use cash. So anyway, it goes on to say, Mr. Woodham, the owner, not the manager, because the manager's Gareth, said he was taken aback when he visited the pub one day, when Gareth was sort of at the bar, and he went to have a chat with one of the chefs. And the chef said to Mr. Woodham, he said, look, Mr. Woodham, they are not happy now. And Mr. Woodham, well, as you do, Mr. Woodham went off and he didn't think anything of it. They're obviously not happy. Obviously, Gareth's the new manager. They don't like Gareth. It's got to be him. And what he didn't know, that when the chef took him aside, he was actually referring to the ghosts, not the customers. And so Di Woodham said that he thought that the chef was referring to customers, but he actually meant the ghosts. They were unsettled by Gareth taking over. Not the customers, it was the ghosts. And Di Woodham said, I was also told that whatever I do, I should not go ahead with the extension because the ghosts won't like it. But it's something I needed to do, the owner said alongside Gareth. Anyway, Gareth, 32 in 2006, who lives above the pub, has begun his own way of winning over the ghouls. In his own words, the ghosts sound better. And he would say, I always say good night to them and good morning and talk to them upstairs because you feel there's somebody around. And you know, that's as far as that's as far as I'd usually go before people get bored with standing outside the Plough and Harrow, whether it's windy or whatever. But there's a few other things as well that as you dig into it, the staff and the customers reported dozens of incidents associated with the Plough and Harrow, dozens of incidents. And there it is, woo, spooky. It's not that spooky, actually. Do you know what, right? Do you know what? I've never felt any weird presences except in the toilet. Whenever you went for a pee, you always felt there was somebody standing behind you. And there never was. The toilet's on the left-hand side. Didn't you have an experience in the toilets, Michelle?
No, it felt strange in there. I can see.
She felt strange in there as well. Amy always feels strange wherever, so I'm not going to even bother asking her. Anyway, the former landlady, Beryl Botham, who died in 1985, is said prowls the room. Now, can you imagine it? So in other words, you've got a landlady that went nuts. You've got another landlady who shot his wife, I think. You've got this Gareth who has all these problems. It's not a place to, yeah. So another one as well is directly inside. You've got Jane Lewis, the cleaner. So Jane Lewis, the cleaner, she was upstairs cleaning as you do, you know. A good old shake and vac. I haven't heard that for ages. Puts the freshness back. And Jane was cleaning this one day, and she was followed by a little boy as she worked. So you can imagine you're being followed by a little boy as you work. And she said, he would walk behind me. And she said he was 4 or 5 years old. And he's got light colored clothes. He had these nice sort of ringlets. My little son Reuben used to have ringlets when he was a child. Little, you know, these. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, Gillian, where you've got your little son, daughter who's got ringlets. Lovely things. But anyway, weirdly enough, he was 4 or 5 years old. You'd usually associate ringlets with like a younger child. And then she said, even though she saw this image a few times, it was a little bit of fleeting image, really. So. Oh, we're going to do the bones. All right. I'm really finished yet, actually. So I'm really finished. But it said in the building, which is that building over there. There you go. In that building, that's the carpentry shop. And over there on this side is the blacksmith shop. So the nails would be made in the blacksmith shop. Thank you. And then the coffins would be made in the carpenters, yeah. And then they would then be placed over to the church, which is just further down the road, where we would never go on our walks, actually. And I will tell you the reason why. I don't think I've told anyone this. I'll tell you the reason why now, but we'll wait for that. And it said that the bodies would be prepared in the pub by the dartboard, because I'm not sure if the dartboard's actually still in this part of the bar, but anyway. So this is the oldest part of the pub anyway. So back to the 1300s. Anyway, so the bodies would be prepared in there. They would be token bodies. So there'd be like 20 bodies that would be come off a shipwreck. One or two would be brought on the burial lane up the valley from the coast. Maya Funnan, that's another name for the valley as well, other than Blaenacwm. And so anyway, the bodies would be brought on the burial lane, one or two. The rest would be buried along the coast or just chucked out to sea. So you can imagine why this whole area is really spooked out and you get freaked out by it. But anyway, glasses would be thrown and chairs would be moved. Ornaments would also be moved. And basically after the investigation, they found out, the medium found out that that the ghost didn't actually want to harm anybody, and no harm would come to Gareth as long as things were done the way they wanted things to be done. Except they also found out that a great deal of harm was caused to previous owners and previous managers of the pub. So, you know, rather strange, interesting stuff. Oh, and by the way, Gillian, when you're next there with your hubby, right, just tell him to take you out there next week, right? If you go to the bar and you look down at the floor of the bar, there's a gravestone. It's actually got a letter on it, so there you go. The early types of gravestones that just would have a letter on it, sort of like from the, you know, late 1500s, early 1600s. There's one there, a reused gravestone in the bar. Nice. Don't tell anyone that. Don't tell anyone I told you. Right. So there we go. We're going to go down to the coast now, and I would like to relive 2014 when I was famous for a day. And so over here, where are we? Where are we gonna go? So right, here we go. Let's there. So actually, you would go down hither, and you go down here, and that's actually quite a drop. And you go up here, that's quite a drop. So be very careful. Over here, there are the monk bones, and there used to be monk bones because they've been removed now. So let's go down the little doodah. So moving on a bit. So those are the monk's bones. They were used by the Sun, the Scottish Times, the everything, the Echo, the Guardian, the Mirror, the Mail, the Sunday Sport. I don't know if the Sunday Sport was still going then. I don't think the Sunday Sport has been going for years, actually. Anyway, there's the bones. Those were the famous bones. And as you're looking at the famous bones, I'm gonna relive a little bit of memory lane. So if I can get my memory lane up. So here we go. Hang on a minute. Where's my little article? Where's the little article there? Oh, I can't find it. Do you know what I'm going to do? Right. Do you know what I'm going to do now? It seems to have lost it. So all you need to do is go on the internet and type in Monk's Bones Monknash. And you know what? The only thing you'll see is me. And so you go. I'll read out this little article. Which one do you want? Which one do you want? Do you want coastal erosion reveals shipwreck bones and remains of medieval leg bones? Let's do that one. Right, so I agree with that. So I'm just going to read this one out. Memory lane. I'm allowed to go down memory lane, aren't I, Del? Good. Del's not talking to me now. I've upset him.
Yeah, you can. Fine.
So actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to start it again. So here we go. Headline news. This is I to be honest with you, I think I spent about I spent a lot of money that week buying the newspapers. Anyway, leg bones of 800-year-old medieval monk discovered sticking out of South Wales cliff. A beach walker has discovered 800-year-old remains of a monk after she spotted his leg bones. So obviously, Rambler Mandy Ewington was strolling along the seashore of Monknash when she looked up and saw two bones. So those are the bones. She took a picture and sent it to leading coastal archaeologist KARL-JAMES Langford. And in one newspaper, I was an eminent archaeologist as well. So there you go. Two femurs were spotted sticking out of a cliff face in Monknash. KARL-JAMES Langford, 39, told Wales Online, "I thought she must have been mistaken, but I went down to see myself and thought, bloody hell, this is amazing." I actually said something else. You can clearly see a grave has been eroded into the sea. What is fascinating is you can see the two femurs being slowly revealed as the cliffs are eroded away. University lecturer Langford, oh Christ, said the area used to be a burial ground for Cistercian monks in the medieval period, I would have said. There was a monastic community close to the area, and these bones indicate a male in their late 20s who was in good health. The bones are believed to have belonged to a man in his late 20s. I would say they belong to a monk from the 1200s due to previous archaeological digs in the past, the depth of the bones in the cliff, and the history of the area. He would likely to be buried with nothing except two shroud rings, which would have held his burial shroud in place at the head and feet. It's quite an easy picture to put together. The valley is named after the Welsh saint Cywydd, and was home to a community of Cistercian monks from 1129 until the dissolution of the monasteries in 1535. Langford, who runs Archaeology Cymru, said the winter storms had caused huge swathes of the British coastline to collapse, and precious archaeological sites were being revealed and lost to the sea. So there they are. And if you can look along as well, I'm very aware that I'm going to have to speed on a little bit more. You can see one grave there, another grave there, another grave there, and another grave there. And basically, the bodies were eventually exhumed in 2019 by the Glamorgan Archaeological Trust, an organisation that I've got no respect for at all. And one of the reasons why I've got no respect for at all, I went on one news station, you can imagine now, and then they went on another news station. So they went on ITV, I went on the BBC, or was it the other way around? And they said, "Oh, we've got the money to excavate these bones, and they will be safely removed." And they never did, and they were smashed out. And it's only been in 2019 that the bones were removed. And my point was that it was against the human dignity of the monks that the bones weren't weren't taken away and reburied somewhere else. And I just was really upset about that. Anyway, so what we're going to do now, I am going to go to there. We've done the monk's bones, and where we're going to go now is fleetingly and briefly. John's going to moan and want his money back because I haven't done enough of Marcross tonight for his tough job. And we're going to do Marcross, and the rather interesting thing about Marcross is that there's a little well there as well. So we've done, where have we done this, lovies? And there we go. So there's Monknash. Further on down the coast is Marcross. And apparently, right, I shouldn't do this, but I sent Amy up this dark lane at night to find the well. And she got really freaked out by it. Didn't you, Amy? Well done. Tell us all about it at the end. Amy can tell us that story, actually. Amy's story up the lane at the end, Amy. So that's the lane, Lan Road. So that's Heel Lass Road. and that's Land Road. So anyway, so moving on, and bingo. Now, the one thing about being an archaeologist is that sometimes life can be very frustrating. And the reason why life can be very frustrating because you can't always get what you want. Because on this aerial view, I can't see bugger all. We can see the pub, but what we can see is when I've actually been there, I've actually questioned. That's definitely a boundary. And I've actually questioned that that's probably more the boundary like this, something like this, and went into the field across and something like that, yeah. But I'm not really sure, but it's very different. But when you actually look at another aerial view, you see what I mean. But that building there, now that's another tithe barn. That's actually the tithe barn at Marcross. So that tithe barn is, if I find it, never known a night like it. That tithe barn is there. It's only a bit of a tithe barn, but as my granddad used to say, there's nothing wrong with a bit. So this here is the tithe barn, and this is much smaller than the other one, but it's the gable end is still there, facing the road. Lots of humps and bumps. So all you really see there today, but the farmer doesn't mind you tramps across the field as long as there's no sheep there. And as we go, there it is. That you can actually see a little bit more. And there's a few more stones in the field, but what these are here, if anyone remembers, hang on, do that again. These are putt logs. So as the building's going up, they put scaffolding poles up. So we'd have something like, hang on, that's not right. There you go. We'd have a scaffolding pole going through there, poking out, and then what they would do, they would have beams running across as well, between all the way across here and all the floors. So as you're building, you'd have a platform then to build the next level and build the next level, and then eventually, what you would do is you would eventually, as you put the roof on, as you would render the outside of this wall, taking that down, and then you'd render the outside of the wall, filling all these up with the putt log. So it would be cut off, or it'd be pulled out, and you'd fill it with mortar. Hence the putt log. That's where the name comes from. And then eventually you go down to the bottom. There you go, job done, happy days. And eventually they'd all be gone, happy days. So there you go. We can move it on. There are lots of earthworks in the field, but they're really difficult to work out because there's lots of change in there, lots of agriculture, lots of things altering. But you can actually see this from the side of the field. It's not wise to go there in the winter because it's really, really boggy. But there it is. You know, I said we can't always see what we want. And you can see a lot more in this one. So, you know, I mentioned about the boundary walls earlier on. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? And you look that there, go across there, maybe a little bit more over there. And then you got that there, across here, and there, and along there as well, all the way down there, maybe a bit more there, Those things there, if those are quarries, stone quarries for building the walls. And the building that we've actually seen already is this one. You can see it, lovely. And you can see all the other earthworks. And they say that the frontage itself on the main road is 320 meters across, which is exactly the same length of the one at and maybe the one thing that I think is a bit queer is that I believe that this may have actually fronted directly onto the main road, because this seems a bit strange, this boundary, land divisions and stuff. So yeah, it looks really nice. And just one quick thing is I'm going to make a mistake now, because I think I think that is the location of the well, or it's over here, because it's all boggy and mucky and you can't usually find it. And that's where we're going to go next. There's a well, there's a spring there, a notable spring that has its own little ditty associated with it. Oh, and there we are. It's all collapsed, it's all overgrown. This is known as Fun in a Coed, the Well in the Wood, and for the devil and something, the itch and the stitch, the water in the well will get it out. So in other words, what we're talking about, I don't think that's exact. Anyway, it is close to that. Anyway, so the itch or the stitch, it'll take it out. The water, basically, the water itself, special water, and it's collapsed. But apparently, only about 40 years ago, the lid was still on it. Beautiful, fresh spring water, and it was a notable site at one stage, Long Land Road. But it's all collapsed and so on. And it'd be a nice little project to sort of rebuild one day. But unfortunately, we've all got lots of things going on in our lives. So what I'd like to do, Amy, babes,
Hi.
can you make sure everybody can hear you, right?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
are going to be, Amy, just quickly, you are going to be here and you're going to wander up this lane.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell us, just in a minute, your adventure a few weeks back. Go for it.
Carl, I didn't go up that lane.
You didn't?
No, that was Dunraven.
Oh, I thought you went to Marcross.
No, it was Dunraven. I went in the dark. Michelle was there. She can confirm that.
Right. Oh, wait. We'll keep that one again then. Okay, then. Right. So what I'd like to ask, Amy, have you got anything you'd like to say today before we ask everybody else?
About the plough and the harrow, you know, they said there's poltergeist activity.
Yes.
They mean poltergeist is in non-human demonic spirit.
As in, they haven't defined which type.
Okay, right.
So they haven't defined which type.
Right.
So, which is unfortunate. Anything you would like to say before we go on?
Yeah, really interesting. I haven't been to, Monknash I haven't been to, Nash Point I've been to.
Yes.
There's somewhere I'll obviously visit in the future without you both, you know. Yeah, like when you were showing those fields, I could feel something, you know, in that landscape, in that little square. Definitely something there.
Yes, I completely agree. I completely agree. So, Del, babes, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, coming back to the area by the plough and harrow, that sort of triangle of trees.
You know what we're gonna do, Del? Del, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna go back.
Lovely.
You know, yeah, anything for you, Del. You know it.
Yes. Well, if you look at the
Hang on. Let me get to the plan first. You're so impatient. You're like Anne with a washing machine.
Oh, flipping heck, yes.
Right, go for it. Where I've got the cursor. Where do you want me to point?
Where are we there now? Where's the main road?
The main road is there. That's Hoyle Lass. Yeah.
So right, I'm pointing by you, and you can't see me. Right, the
Hang on, Del, I'll put you on. Go.
Right, the triangle of trees on that junction that goes down to the plough and harrow, and obviously down to the little valley.
Yeah.
Right, there's some the other side of the main road. Would that have been part of the plague pit as well? Would it have gone across the road?
That's a very interesting point, that. And do you know what the answer is? Maybe, because there's no reason why that's been abandoned like that. Because that doesn't make sense.
It just seems odd. The field is ploughed, but then there's trees there.
There's no reason why that's there. It should be a normal. What they did in the war, they moved everything, but it shouldn't be there now. That's a really good point.
Right, that's fine. Really fascinating.
What we're going to do, and everybody keep it relevant to what we're doing, please, because this is being recorded. So I'm going to unmute you all. Jilly, babes, would you like to say anything?
No, it was really interesting, and I have been there, but I'll go again.
Well, you know, if we do another walk there, then it's fine. Do you know,
Remember
yeah, go on.
the night we did the walk down through the Cwm?
Oh, you did that, did you?
With Dennis, yes, he was there as well.
Do you know what? I think about Dennis, right? Do you know he owed me 40 pints, right? Because didn't he, Amy? He said, "Do you want to go to the pub with us?" And I'd say, "Dennis, I will keep that till next time," right? And I did say to Dennis, I've calculated the amount of pints you owe me, which is 40, right? You can now buy everyone a drink. We didn't make him do that, but do you know what? I won't get those drinks out of Dennis now. I'll have my revenge one day. I will. Right, Sophie, anything from you? No, nothing from Sophie. We can't hear her. And Johnny, babes, you look like you're in a toilet.
No, it's Bartley Railway Station, actually.
Are they rebuilding it?
Well, they intend to, but interestingly, the bricks were found in a clay pit in the River Avon.
And they were found in the clay pit.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't explain very well.
Oh, they came from the clay pit, yeah.
Yeah, the clay came from the clay pit in the Avon that made them bricks. Anyway, yes, I've got a question for you.
Go for it.
Right. When I first saw it, it said that with the picture of the bones of the alleged monk, they were upright. And I thought, hey, hang on, you're talking about monks. If they're upright, were they, or is it the life has to be buried upright? I'm thinking Jews, or is it Muslims? I think it's Jews. They have to be buried in an upright position. And I'm thinking, well, here we are talking about a monk.
Yeah, but these weren't buried. These were horizontal, not upright. These were horizontal. These weren't vertical. So don't know where you're going to getting your vertical images from.
Well, the bones were vertical, sticking out the ground.
Oh no, they were horizontal. They were on the flat. They were horizontal.
Oh, okay. It looked as though they were sticking out.
No. They were actually horizontal, not vertical. Horizontal. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So so anyone else want to say anything else before we end? I do know that Dell wants some time with Amy alone, so we'll have to organise that at the end. So what I'm doing is going to the website. Two things I want to mention. Obviously, you know about the next walk. You need to book that online. Next week we're doing something very unusual. We're doing Cardiff. We're going to be looking at Cardiff myths, ghosts, legends. Yeah, there's quite a few there. Anyone who wants a copy of this book, right? They need to let me know.
Okay. Carl, before you go, have you got an XXL fleece that you can bring tomorrow?
We don't, because we need to order them. So you want an XXL fleece?
Yes, please. Yes, with a zip. I don't want a hood.
Oh yeah,
the collar and the zip.
We don't want to be enclosed. We don't want to be enclosed. You know.
No, we don't want none of that. No.
Or we could get you. We could get you Dennis's raincoat. Can you remember his raincoat, Gillian? It was huge. It was like a cagoule. Yeah. Anyway,
I'll bring the fever trees tomorrow and Dwayne as well.
And Dwayne, okay. So you're gonna be picking Dwayne up at 12, are you?
Yes, if that's okay with you. Yeah.
Okay, we'll bring the eggs for you as well. That's fine. That's fine.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, Brad.
Okay, okay. Well, if anyone's got anything else to say, I'll say goodnight to you, John. Okay.
Raffle prizes.
No, John. So I do believe that thanks everyone joining us tonight. Have you all enjoyed it?
Yes, we have.
Good.
Yeah, really did tonight.
Good, good. You
Baffle
sound
prizes.
surprised. You sound surprised. Okay, Gillian, are you off now as well?
Yes, I'm off now.
Okay, Gillian, I'll see you on Wednesday then. So I'll say good night to you, Gillian. No night.
Take
And John,
care.
I'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
Baffle prizes.
See you, John. And Sophie, I don't know if you're staying on a minute to. Oh, you want to say goodbye? It's up to you.
I'll stay on for a minute.
All right then, because I think Sophie's looking after you, Amy. She thinks that you're going to be hijacked by John. Okay, John, I'm gonna have to kick you off, John, because
I'm too old for
I'm too young. Right, John, I'm kicking you off now, so I'm going to remove you. Night, John. Night. Right, so that's John gone. Gillian's already left the building, I think.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you're still there.
Yeah, I can't switch it off. I can't find the thing.
All right then. I will remove you, Gillian. So I'm going to do this on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye, Gillian.
Bye.
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 Bye. Okay, what I'm going to do, guys, is stop the recording. And 1, 2, 3. You don't need it recorded. There's nothing else to say about the class now?
No.